a shout of him upstairs, and had to crawl back into bed on his hands and knees. And then the next day, when I crawled him up, he sort of got himself pulled together a bit, and the next day he was able to get up. But when I shouted him for his tea, Gary sat with his hands and his head in his hands, and I said, "Oh, what's the matter? You know?" He said, "I'm just worried in case my dad can't get out of bed again, you know." But I suppose you worry, you just try not to think about it.
Debbie?
The way to look at it is the sting.
I hope you didn't agree with that though, Malcolm.
been for us
I
for
don't agree
years.
with it at all. They look down on us because we have a funny dialect.
How long have we kept the buggers warm?
Oh.
Yeah, we've kept them in work, etc.
Etc.
We have. You know, the northeast coast.
Oh, yeah, nice.
But they're regarded as bloody peasants, you know. 5'2", cloth cap and a muffler.
Yeah.
That's us. And a whippet. Didn't forget the whippet at the bar.
The whippet, yeah.
And the whippet at the bar. You know, this is basically untrue.
Men come out from the pit, you know, and they've got a garden, they probably have a few hens, they probably keep pigeons. They have greyhounds, they have whippets because they can walk in the countryside with the dog after they've come out of the pit, after they've come out of the dust, the darkness, and they like to walk in the grain fields, the light, and we work shifts. So during the day, a workman walks his dog out, he goes and flies his pigeons, he goes into the garden.
Right.
I know management at Dawdon's very keen on machinery and very conscious of the fact that they must make the machine work. So consequently the machine has become number one and man has become number two. Now we could never really go along with that or agree with it, and we must constantly fight and tell the men to fight against this set of circumstances. That machine has no heart, the machine has no soul, the eyes of the machine is the bloke that's working it, and that machine can maim, that machine can kill. So we tell our blokes to treat machines with respect, but not deference. And we think that the man should take over, become master of the machine, because otherwise some of these old-time science fiction writers who used to talk about robots taking over, you know, while it's their idea of the robot at the time hasn't come about, Nevertheless, the 1984 George Orwell images is still very much a danger, and individuals have got to learn to fight for their rights as individuals. This is where you get a hell of a lot of problems and trouble, for the simple reason that everybody has a stock phrase now. What we are doing is for the greater good, and to hell with the individual. And yet they'll tell you, freedom of the individual, freedom from one, freedom from this, freedom from that, you know, until they come bang up against what they don't want, and then they'll tell you, oh no, collectivism, it's the community, the majority, but it's not really, you know. It's just that they want their way, and they want their way of life, and they want to manipulate the community to suit their own ends. So the machines in the pit must never be allowed to become the masters of the men. The men in the pits have plenty masters without the machine starting.
Coal mining industry in this country has been treated abominably by successive governments and by politics generally. And this goes way, way back. The fact that in the early 1960s or the middle 1960s, the Labour government wrote off the coal industry. And there's no question about that's what they did. It was to be an inhuman thing for men to go down the pit and dig coal. And therefore the party, the Labour Party, and perhaps others, decided that the industry would run down. All the platitudes were given that, well, there's an industry for our lifetime and all this. But the decision was made that the industry would run down. And they all fell flat on their faces. The effect of this upon the workforce and upon management and upon people within the industry was disastrous. And it led ultimately to what happened in 1972 and what happened this year. Because we tried to run an industry on the cheap. We tried to get men to do a dirty, dangerous, bloody awful job for less than we were prepared to pay a lavatory cleaner. And in those sort of circumstances, only one thing could happen. That was either we finished the industry completely, or there was an explosion that brought home the vital nature of the industry to government. And I think this point has now been made. Arguing here now is some restitution of payment. Now the second side of that is the system. Here we have a fellow that's been off obviously with something seriously wrong with him, because he's been off 6 months. That's a long period of time. He's unfamiliar with the pit again. He's been away from it for a hell of a long time. His pit sense could be suspect, all sorts of things. But above all, he hasn't been examined by the board doctor to say that he's fit for work again.
Fair enough, he shouldn't have gone into the pit,
Right.
but he didn't have. But the system in vogue shouldn't have been able to allow him to get that far before he was stopped, you know. So there's some tightening up of the system required. Secondly, had we had under management of a humane nature at the time, they would have acceded to the laddie's request and found him some sort of work at the surface in order to get him his shift in and then get him examined if they wanted by the coal board doctor, etc., etc.
What shift was he in?
First shift.
First
You know.
shift.
So he gets out of bed, he goes down the pit, he was down a couple of hours or so, he was brought forcibly out to the surface and banished into the wilderness.
Oh, I think you've got to get away from using these emotive terms again, Ernie. You know, put yourself in the man's place that is responsible for this lad.
I phoned round to ascertain the facts about his time, and the people had brought him out to the pit and put an embargo on any payment of all for the lad concerned.
I think it's a bit harsh for a lad that they get out of bed at 4 or 3 in the morning and then to be found easy. No work available.
Well,
They could have placed him somewhere, surely.
I don't know. I think Ernie made that point, Morris, and I was thinking about it there. Perhaps he could have been placed on the surface. On the other hand, may well be that we placed him on cleaning some belts up or working in the timber yard that he would have suffered some sort of accident, and this would have placed us all in a very difficult position, as well as the lad himself, of course.
$372, is that your work
Aye.
number?
Yeah, I'm losing money that way.
Oh no, you aren't putting that.
It'd be all millions, you know.
Whereabouts are you walking?
J31, right, bottom.
J31, you've been on a full week.
I was on, started from last Monday night.
And how many shifts you getting last week? 4?
4 and I had a rest day on Monday night.
And you've only been paid what? Grade 3?
I've only been paid deal for the hard work. That's £7,000.
Right, just take your time, sit down a bit, bunny lass. Hello, George Metcalf, please.
And I think the suspect of that night, like, starting if